David appears in this cover story in Esquire magazine, and the list is, it's right here in black and white. They called the list the 21 most important people of the 21st century, right? And at this point, if you're, even if you're David Kelly's like mom and dad, and I present Exhibit A, Exhibit B over there, right? Even if you're David Kelly's mom and dad, you're at least thinking. You're not saying this out loud because you want to be, you want to be polite. You don't want to hurt anybody's feeling, but you're at least thinking like, oh my God, 21 most important people of the 21st century? You're calling the race a little early, aren't you? Right? Because I want to point out that this cover story in Esquire magazine, this is November 1999. So look, I love my brother way too much to be objective about him. But I can say this. I can say a lot of other people, oops, lost one of those, a lot of other people who are way more objective than me thought that David was a pretty remarkable guy. So please welcome my favorite brother, David Kelly.
You can see why I have Tom do the talking in most So anyways, I'd first like to thank the Thomas Edison Papers Project and the committee that selected me for this award. I'm very pleased. It certainly seems appropriate to thank a few people. I'd like to thank all those teachers and mentors along the way who helped me, especially my longtime mentor, Bob McKim, professor at Stanford. I'd also like to thank all my students at Stanford and my colleagues at IDEO over the years. Certainly, I've learned a lot more from them than they have from me. When you hang around young people as much as I do, you pretty soon learn that the eggs teach the chickens mostly. I would certainly like to thank my friends and family, my parents for their kind of love and support. It's a lot of patience required by my parents to understand why a perfectly good bicycle that they gave me for Christmas needs to be taken apart and the red paint sandblasted off of it and being painted day glow orange, in the first 15 minutes after I get it. Or why it's okay to take apart the family piano and really never quite put it back together again. I'd also like to thank my wife and daughter for their love and support as well, especially their Herculean efforts in taking care of me over a long illness that I recently survived. I'm particularly pleased to be connected with the Thomas and Edison Award because, as you heard today, I mean, it's very clear Edison was the most creative geniuses that we've ever had in this country. But the interesting thing to me is that our point of view, I mean, it's a good thing that Sarah's written this book. I mean, I would have missed this completely, but it's kind of uncanny how similar that Edison's point of view was to our own. He had a multidisciplinary approach. He thought of innovation as a team sport, and so do we. Despite the press wants to put, like all those magazines that my brother held up and had my picture on the cover, the press wants us to think of it as an individual people doing the work, but that's not true. I have 500 people and thousands of students behind me who are actually coming up with the ideas that I just kind of take credit for, He believed that it was important to have a market for what you, as you heard, a market for what you do. He was interested in doing things that people actually needed, right? And we call that, in our world, we call that human-centered design. It's the same thing. He believed in a kind of thinking using both sides of the brain. Sarah in her book calls it kaleidoscope thinking. We call it design thinking. It's the same. And he was a prototyper, almost most important to me. He was a prototyper in that he believed that building was a way of thinking. Too many of us, I think, spend a lot of time planning and then preparing and then build something. We actually think, we have what we call a culture of prototype, kind of iterative prototype after prototype, and it's really a way of thinking, not just a kind of an execution plan. So there's so many similarities between the Edison approach and what we use at both IDEO and Stanford that it's kind of really interesting to me. Thanks for that book. So standing here today, I feel very lucky. I really feel lucky that I found my fit in life, that I found my passion. This is what I most wish for my students, that they find their fit, and this is what we try to do. And my fit is really about helping people to actually be confident in their creative ability. You know, when I was a kid, everybody always used to say to me, "Oh, you're so creative." It didn't really ring true to me. It seemed like everybody was creative, and I think I'm right. I know I'm right, ever watching the students over the years, that it's inside of everybody. Now, we have this kind of notion about the kind of analytical side of our brains that's really quite developed, and our school systems are actually good at developing kind of analytical thinking, and they should keep doing that. I'm a big proponent of, you know, science and math education for kids and that kind of scientific method and using, you know, that kind of left side of the brain stuff, and I think that's very important. But I think we kind of missed the boat in a lot of our educational systems about the other side of the brain, the part where these kind of creative leaps come from. And so what I've really dedicated my life to is trying to infect as many people with that religion, or whatever you want to say, that allows them to have that confidence. Because I believe with that confidence, they'll go out and make better decisions, whether it's, you know, planning a new dinner party or curing cancer or whatever else they do. So I can't tell you how gratifying it is. In the new institute that I started at Stanford we call it the D school, to make fun of the business school. That's the B school. But I can't tell you how many people send me emails saying, "Oh, thank you so much," doctors, lawyers, business people, who have been, that side of their brain has been woken up by the classes they've taken in our institute, and they say, "I used to walk around only as an analytical person. Now I walk around both as an analytical person and as a creative person," and that just feels really good. And so that's really what we're trying to do. So when you see people out there that kind of need that little kind of support or lower the barrier to them, they could be the next Thomas Edison, so please support them. So right now, standing up here in front of you, I feel lucky. I feel lucky inside. I feel lucky that I found that fit in life. I feel lucky that I survived this recent bout of cancer and have that behind me. I feel lucky for my friends and family and students and colleagues. And I feel lucky to be honored in this way. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much, David. It really is extraordinarily uncanny how many of IDEO's processes overlap with Edison's. Very, very true. I would now like to introduce the presenter for our second Achievement Award winner of the afternoon, Sue Siegel, who will in turn introduce Dr. Susan Desmond-Hellman. Sue Siegel is a partner at Moore Davidow Ventures, a top-tier Silicon Valley venture capital firm that invests in entrepreneurs creating businesses with significant challenges associating with personalized medicine, the digital world, and powering the planet. Prior to joining Moore Davidow Ventures, Sue was president and director of Affymetrix Incorporated, a company that pioneered gene chip technology. Formerly at Amersham International, now GE, Sue's last role was as president, Hofer Pharmacia Biotech. Sue is a member of the board of directors of Navigenics, Pacific Biosciences, and several other firms, including the board of the Tech Museum of Innovation. An advisor to the Institute of Medicine, Sue is also a Henry Crown Fellow of the Aspen Institute. As part of this fellowship, she co-founded with Stanford Hospital and her husband Checking In, an organization dedicated to serving our nation's aging population. Please join me in welcoming Sue Siegel.